manhood as resting on a basis of complaining, right? We can criticize, we can analyze, we can diagnose, but there's no part of manhood that is defined by bitching and moaning.
Not if you want to have a manhood worthy of any kind of pride in itself.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to be proud to be a man, I find pride to be, maybe it's just my Catholicism, but pride to sin, so I'm not big on pride.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to have any sense of dignity or duty as a man, you need to understand what it means to be a good man.
What is it to be a good man? To be continued. What a great guest. John Papola, Dad Saves America. I'm Sebastian Gorka. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep your head in the swivel. Watch your six. Hold the line. Never give up. Never give in.
Trump has been elected the 47th president of the United States. And now that he's coming into office, there are many issues he's looking to tackle. The biggest one, or at least one of the biggest, being illegal immigration. And one of the policies on that he's looking to change is that of birthright citizenship, where a person is granted citizenship in the United States if they're born in the country, even if one or both parents are here illegally. Now, Trump previously announced a day one policy to end this practice. Currently, under U.S. law, a person is granted U.S. citizenship if they're born in the United States, even if both parents are illegal immigrants. Trump is arguing this creates an incentive for illegal immigration, or for people to simply travel to the U.S. from other countries, maybe on a vacation, or intentionally when a woman is pregnant so they can give birth here. If the child can then be born on American soil, it opens the doors to other things, including various social benefits, but also chain migration, where they can bring in their family members. Trump announced this back in May of 2023 and said that he will end the policy through executive order on day one of his administration. Watch.
As part of my plan to secure the border on day one of my new term in office, I will sign an executive order making clear to federal agencies that under the correct interpretation of the law, going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship.
Trump says this policy will choke off a major incentive for illegal immigration and will also deter people who might try to, want to illegally immigrate, maybe make them not want to do it, right? He says that under this executive order, kids will still become U.S. citizens at birth if at least one of their parents is also a U.S. citizen. That's how you become a citizen of the United States. Those of you curious, this is actually the standard for most countries on Earth. America is one of the only countries that will give you citizenship if you just happen to be born here. This is not common among any country. America is an exception to this globally. Now, remember, this would be an executive order, though. All right, Trump saying executive order day one. It technically would not go through Congress to become legislation, which would make it a lot more solid. Technically, an executive order can be overturned by any future president. All they have to do is come in, basically sign a paper, and it's gone. That means that unless there's a legal review and the Supreme Court makes a ruling on this, or unless Congress follows this with legislation, it's probably not going to stick past the Trump administration. And that, of course, means that we'll have to see whether there's any pushback on it, because ironically, if there is legal pushback, if organizations make lawsuits, they sue, they're ironically going to push it to the Supreme Court. If they want to wait 4 years, technically it can just vanish if they happen to get someone in who doesn't like it. Now, that said, though, this, of course, will likely start a very long legal process as well. You can expect many groups, and remember, not all this is just political. Just be one individual born here and says, what do you mean I'm not a citizen, although we wait till they're older, to challenge it, right? Especially because right now it's based on a Supreme Court interpretation of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Birthright citizenship in the United States technically goes back to around 1898. Now, the case at the time, that was United States v. Kim Wong-Ark. It was a case in San Francisco of a 20-year-old man. He was born in the United States. His parents were Chinese citizens under the Emperor of China, but were living in the United States. Now, the case started because the man, Mr. Wong Kim Ark, he had gone on a trip to China, and when he tried going back to the United States, they denied him entry because they said he was not a U.S. citizen. He's like, what do you mean? I've been here for 20 years. Now, that went to court. He filed a lawsuit. The case on that is what was used to establish birthright citizenship. Let me show you what the actual court document stated way back in March of 1898. It said, quote, "A child born in the United States of parents of Chinese descent who at the time of his birth are subjects of the Emperor of China but have a permanent domicile in residence in the United States and are there carrying on business and are not employed in any diplomatic or official capacity under the Emperor of China become at the time of his birth a citizen of the United States by virtue of the first clause of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution." Now, again, birthright citizenship was not part of the original ideas of the United States. That came in through the 14th Amendment, an interpretation of it, more importantly. Now, that had been added to the Constitution just a few decades prior to that. Again, that was July 1868. And, of course, the 14th Amendment was there to bring an end to slavery, right? Because one of the arguments some people were making against the ending of slavery is they said, well, these are citizens of Africa, not the United States. And so the 14th Amendment clarified that and said, no, these are American citizens. They're free and they're American citizens. Now, Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, that was what was used as the basis for citizenship at birth. Let me show you what that says. This is Congress. It says, quote, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Now, a lot of that could be interpreted to go after a lot of things, but on this issue in particular, right? Changing birthright citizenship, it may not be that easy. Again, because using an executive order to change an interpretation of the Constitution that's been in place, right, again, since the late 1800s, that could be a bit of a challenge. But remember, we're seeing executive orders on other constitutional issues, right? It's not that uncommon to see executive orders or even state actions against things that constitutionally we would normally consider to be protected, like free speech, for example. In the United States, we have very broad protection on free speech. Some of that is now illegal, especially under like hate speech laws. And gun laws is another great example of this, where under the Constitution, we have almost like free reign, if you read it by the word, but in terms of interpretation at state levels especially, gun laws are pretty deeply restricted. So again, it is possible that even if the surface reading of the Constitution can be one way, it can be interpreted another way. And it is because of this that, this could be interpreted in many ways, especially because they could argue that the original interpretation of this that allowed for birthright citizenship, they could argue that it was not in context of the current problems we have of mass illegal immigration, which has kind of changed the rules of the game. There have also been a lot of attempts over the years to change the interpretation to end birthright citizenship. This is something that's been ongoing for a very long time. Congress, just about every year, they have at least one bill on it. In fact, they have several going through right now being proposed. But for the most part, really, they tend to not get a whole lot of traction. But the important part with that is that if Trump were to pass an executive order on this, you would immediately see lawsuits. You would immediately see probably Congress trying to move forward with bills. It would begin both a legislative process and a legal process. The legislative process could set it in law. The legal process could move it eventually to the Supreme Court, where it could be decided one way or the other. And remember now, with Republicans taking the Senate, possibly taking the House, based on current numbers, it looks like they really might. They only need 4 more seats. They do have a shot at it. And again, not to mention that they technically also control the Supreme Court. Now, when it comes to birth citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants, though, now we don't really know the numbers of how many people there are. Pew Research Center had some research on this going back to 2018. That was when Trump was also pushing to end birthright citizenship during his first term. This is what they said. They said about 250,000 babies were born to unauthorized immigrant parents, reading illegal immigrants, in the United States in 2016, the latest year for which information is available. We don't really know after 2016. And that's important because, well, a lot of the problems started after 2016. Now, they say this according to a Pew Research Center analysis of government data. They say this represents a 36% decrease from a peak of about 390,000 in 2007. And they know that overall around 5 million U.S.-born children younger than 18 were living with at least one unauthorized immigrant parent in 2016, up from around 4.5 million in 2007, according to the new estimates. Now, keep in mind, the data is from 2016. So again, that would mostly not cover the massive migrant caravans we started seeing during the Trump administration, especially during the second half. It would also not include the mass illegal immigration, right? Well over 10 million on a conservative estimate that we've seen over the last 4 years. Now, it's not clear what the current numbers are, and even then, there are a lot of debates on how accurate estimates are on the numbers of illegal immigrants in the United States just in general. And keep in mind, this is not the numbers for illegal immigrants we're talking about here. This is the number of kids they have once they come here, who then become citizens by virtue of being born here. Now, my personal take on this, look, I mean, I literally have family members, through marriage, who are birthright citizens, right? Their parents came here illegally, they were born here, and I know they would argue, like, well, what did I do? I mean, it wasn't my fault. I didn't illegally immigrate here. I was, born here. The people I know personally are about as American as they come. I know actually quite a few people like this. At the same time, though, on the other side, I'm very much aware there are people who exploit this as a loophole. There are even so-called maternity hospitals that set it up as a business. People set these up and they facilitate women to give birth in the United States. And they do this so they can game the immigration laws. The federal agents actually, right? They actually, you might remember, raided and shut down a network of 20 of these places in California back in 2015. And right afterwards, they said it was an ongoing problem. Even raiding them did not end them. This is a business for some people. Yeah. Now, I think the issue you have with any lax standards like this tends to be that there will be plenty of good cases where people just happen to be born here and there's no bad intent involved. But you're also going to have people who exploit it. And the issue now with mass illegal immigration is there are concerns that this could alter the fabric of the country. If you bring in 10 million or 20 million people, start a pathway to citizenship, then add chain migration to the mix, as soon as they get the right to vote, you are going to change the fabric of the country. This is a concern a lot of people on the conservative side had, and a lot of that is going to come down to the question of citizenship and also the voter rights that go with it. When it comes to the broader topic of illegal immigration, Trump is saying he has other policies in store, and I'll be talking about this after we come back from a quick break.